Greetings everyone, I'm Kurt and welcome to my channel. In this week's edition of Monday Ramble, I am going to be reviewing Tom Bissell's Extra Lives. Now, before I even get into it, I'm going to start by saying this book is just a tad old. It came out in 2010. However, I do think this is still an essential read for anyone interested in video games as art, or anyone who's willing to dive a little bit deeper into the medium that is still quite young. Okay, Extra Lives is a series of essays based both on Bissell's personal experiences playing video games, as well as interviews he's had with industry leaders such as Cliff Bleszinski to Jonathan Blow. For the most part, a lot of these essays dive specifically into Bissell's reaction to playing certain games at certain points in his life, and how they have time to time inflicted bigger questions and concerns for him personally, as well as the artistic medium as a whole. And Bissell is able to deliver all of this in such a way that can be understood by both gamers and non-gamers alike. Throughout its 200-some pages, Bissell brings up a countless number of points throughout the book, some asking bigger questions than others. In one particular chapter, he dives deeply into the idea of first-person shooters and the effect it's had on him personally, but this also stems into violence in video games overall. In this chapter, he talks about his first experience playing the game Manhunt and his inability to handle its almost snuff-like violence. It affected him so deeply that he actually never completed the game. But then he immediately contrasts this with not having a single problem mowing down hundreds upon hundreds of players in a game of Call of Duty. And then from there he goes on this long tangent on how one in such a way glorifies violence, Call of Duty, when the other shows it in the most gruesome, most disturbing way that could have been thought up in a game. And as those reflections, his ability to look at his experience playing Manhunt and then of course playing a game like Call of Duty and being able to draw the line and look at two in similar ways. Bissell has a way of also explaining these experiences playing games and rooting it into his life at that specific moment in time in such a way that makes it extremely relatable for me, not only as the reader, but also a fellow gamer. At times, these retrospectives can kind of feel like a downward spiral of him just ranting about his personal life. And there were definitely some moments where I was having trouble trying to see exactly where he was going, but he always manages to tie it back to the core idea or thesis of whatever that chapter was. On the flip side of him talking about more personal experiences playing games, he also has glimpses where he talks about his more journalistic approach in the game industry. One chapter in particular focuses on his experience at DICE, which is an annual reward show for video games. In this chapter, he talks about a panel he observed during the DICE Awards called Believable Characters in Games, in which a bunch of people from the industry talked about their methods, mistakes, and successes in creating believable characters. This then goes on for several pages talking about the ins and outs of the psychology of the player, as well as creating a believable character. Many of the games referred to in this panel are games such as Metal Gear Solid, Fallout, Gears of War, and Grand Theft Auto. The chapter, however, concludes with the official awards ceremony of that year in DICE, where almost all of the awards went unanimously to Little Big Planet, a game that ultimately contradicts this giant panel about making believable characters, for it is a game about a sack boy made out of a sack. A game which has no character, no real believable characters, no world building of any kind. In fact, you as the player build the world you play in. And Bissell does a wonderful job, and instead of explaining to you the point he's trying to make by showing most of this chapter being about this panel on believable characters, but instead the game that actually won had nothing to do with it, he just kind of ends it abruptly there, which allowed me to really sit there and digest it. And that I appreciate rather having the idea hammered through my skull. The one point where this book kind of faults is right on the main cover, where it says why video games matter. That is a statement that this book never really quite ever explains in any way, shape, or form, but instead the book focuses on giving an insightful look into one single player's experience and into the minds and artistic direction to some of the developers who've made that game. Not only does the book never answer that question, it never really brings it up either, making it kind of just an empty, weird void on the front cover that just goes ignored. If anything, this book does a marvelous job in giving a deeper look in almost humanization into a medium that is otherwise not very well understood in mainstream culture beyond its possible influence in certain people's violent behavior. But either way, I cannot recommend this book anymore. And one thing I think this book does exceptionally well versus other books about video games is, instead of primarily focusing on the say development or history of a certain game, this is one of the first times I've seen it really take a nosedive into the effect it could have on someone, similar to say movies and literature can. Something that the majority of us, especially those who are watching this and have interest in video games, already understand and get, but it's still gonna take some time for everyone else to catch up, or at least accept it. I don't know. It's a good book. Thank you so much for joining me on my Monday ramble. I have never reviewed a book before, let alone in video format, so please let me know how you think it went, what I could work on if I ramble too much, or if you think I missed something. With that said, the next book that I'm going to read is Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, so I'm hoping to try and plow through this and maybe give a similar video or review down the line. Let me know what you think. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for coming in. Be sure to find me on other jibber jabber skibbity bop, such as Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is where I live and breathe and throw up my most of my skibbity bop on, so please be sure to go there and say hello. Have a wonderful day. Till next time, goodbye.